You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group, and co-hosts Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management, Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian from OptionPit.com, Andrew the Rock Lobster, Joe Benazzi from OptionPit.com, and Henry the Flowmaster Schwartz from SEBO. The Option Block is brought to you by SEBO. When it comes to trading volatility, trust SEBO, the creator of the VIX Index, for in-depth and relevant information. SEBO's tools and services gives you up-to-date trade insights, analysis, and positions of VIX options and futures. No matter what kind of trader you are, there's plenty of useful information to take the guesswork out of creating your portfolio strategy and to help you make more educated moves in the market. Visit www.cboe.com/VIX today to learn more. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody. That music means we are back once again. It is Monday. It is noon Central. It is 1 p.m. Eastern. It is time to commence our broadcast week here on the old Options Insider Radio Network. We love the long weekends. We love the holidays. Hope everyone enjoyed President's Day last week. But that means you missed your first dose of our goodness here for the bi-weekly Options Extravaganza, which is, of course, known far and wide as the Option Block, a.k.a. the old OB. I am known far and wide by my only name, Mark Longo, from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as, of course, from the ever-engaging network upon which so many of you are mainlining these days. Hope you had a good weekend. Hope you're kicking it off in style here with us today on the old show. Remember, if you do like what you hear, this show, anything else we do here on the network, do keep rating and reviewing either on the individual feed for the show, on the full network feed. If you, for some reason, your platform doesn't let you leave a rating, you can always go into the app stores and rate our app there for Google Play or for iOS. It does help new people continue to discover the content out there. And we see the numbers. They are legion. New people are discovering it all the time. Thanks in no small part to the good word of mouth from you folks. So we appreciate you out there helping to spread the good word. And of course, if you want even more good words in your life, and who doesn't these days, theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go. You get access to the giveaways. In fact, we're coming up on it pretty soon, listeners. The February Pro Trading Crate will be awarded. So you want to get your name in that hat soon. You want to be part of it. I just saw the last one we sent out. I was like, that's pretty cool. Theoptionsinsider.com/pro gives you a couple of exclusive shows, including pro Q&As, as well as, of course, live access to this and everything else we do on the network, as well as coming up on 200 freaking pro shows we put up on that feed exclusively for you folks. You can literally binge for days, if not weeks, on all the content we have up there, listeners. So head on over there, theoptionsinsider.com/pro. If you want even more hardcore goodness in your life. And speaking of hardcore goodness, listeners, we like to commence our broadcast week with a little bit of fun, a little bit of getting the old blood pumping, waking everybody up for the week to come here. So let's kick it off, listeners, the way we are wont to do these days, a little bit of the old Guess That 80s Wrestling Trivia. All right, there we go. Got to have a little suitable musical accompaniment for our trivia segment. All right, we've been guessing a lot of fun 80s wrestlers. Of course, we were off last week. Didn't get a chance to do it, but now we are back in it. We are hot and heavy. I am joined today, as usual on the Monday episode, by the unclest of Mikes, Mr. Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management, as well as the greasiest of meatballs, Mr. Mark Sebastian from OptionPit.com. I introduce them both now so they can polish up their buzzers and get ready. Gonna have a fun one today. All right, gentlemen. Today's person you have to guess is a wrestler. He was pretty up there. He was one of the top tier guys. Maybe not, let's say, Hogan or an Andre or a Macho, like the ultimate top tier. But if you liked 80s wrestling, you definitely knew who this guy was. And people, even outside of 80s wrestling, I think know who this person is. So if he's not there, he's like right below those guys. He's up there. He's one of the definite of the pantheon of 80s wrestling stars. And it makes it even more fun because he was originally conceived as and marketed as a heel. That you were not supposed to like this guy. You were supposed to hate him. You were supposed to boo him. But fans, for whatever reason, loved him anyway. And they cheered this guy. He was in like the Hogan's cartoon. He was in everything. Everybody loved and booed this guy, but they also loved him at the end of the day. So he was one of the top heels, as opposed to like an Iron Sheik. Everybody just booed and like hated that guy. But this character they actually cheered for sometimes, which is kind of weird. So he was one of the top heels of the 80s. He has a very infamous ring name, but his real name is Aurelian Smith Jr. Who am I talking about? Nothing? I got no buzzes?
Ding.
All right, go ahead. Go for it.
I'll say the Junkyard Dog.
Interesting guess. Not correct. Uncle Mike, do you have a guess?
I'm going to go with, I'll go with Scott Hall in hopes that that's not his real name.
Scott Hall, no.
No.
All right, you guys both got that wrong. I'm going to throw you a clue, but make it obvious once I give you the clue.
Let me have a guess. Another guess.
You already had your guess. I'm going to give you the clue now. It'll be worth a half a point because I have to give you a clue, but it'll still be a guess. It's a clue. So this infamous heel would come to the ring with an animal in tow.
Buzz.
There you go. Uncle Mike, who you got?
George the Animal Steel.
Oh. No, he had a teddy bear. He had animal in his name. He would come with a creature to the ring. Mr. Meatball, save me.
Oh, I know now.
Oh, I'm going to say, you're not talking about Jake the Snake.
Yes! There you go.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
Jesus. Okay. Sebastian gets one half point for that. I'll give you opportunities for a couple of bonus half points. All right. He came to the ring.
Jake the Snake was in Hulk Hogan's Rockin' Wrestling.
Yeah, he was.
Really? I didn't think he was either.
I'm pretty sure he was. But so Sebastian gets half a point. Now, he came to the ring with an infamous creature. What was the name of that creature?
Buzz.
Uncle Mike.
Damien.
Yes, of course. The snake, Damien. All right, half point for Uncle Mike. And last but not least, Jake the Snake Roberts created perhaps the greatest wrestling signature, finisher, whatever of all time.
Buzz.
I heard Uncle Mike first. I heard Uncle Mike. Uncle Mike, go for it.
The DDT.
Yes, the DDT. They still do it to this day. Every wrestler on the planet today still does a freaking DDT. You could argue it is the most influential move of all time, created by none other than Jake the Snake. So we got TOSAW getting a full point for the DDT and for the Damien. And we got Sebastian getting half points here for getting the name of the character. All right, so we got a game here, listeners. I'll have to add up the points later and see how we're looking. I think we were pretty close to even coming into today, though. As we keep on rolling right on into the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the trading block.
All right, listeners, welcome to the trading block. Did you guess Jake the Snake? Did you know his real name? Definitely one of those infamous heels/faces. He was a little bit of both. You know what's not both today? It's the market. It is moving in one direction today, listeners. We are moving back into the green. S&P up about 0.6% as we're kicking off the show. NASDAQ closing in on a full percent. Not quite there, but pretty darn close. And the Dow off a little bit under 0.5%. So S&P trying to regain a lot of what it lost last week. Still shy of the 4,000 level, but not too far away from it anymore out there, given the fact that we were back, 39.80 or close to it just this morning. So a rallying back up, trying to get back over that 4,000 level. We'll see if we can get there even by, who knows, in a few minutes, the way this market moves these days. That means all this coming into the start of the week here. We've got VIX moving back down a little bit. VIX at a 21, down about a point from where it was on our show last Thursday. VVIX, the vol at about an 85, down 5 points from where it was last week. A VXX 1175, down almost half a point, about 0.45 when we kicked off the show. UVXY, UVXY, call it what you will. A 510, down about 0.3 of a point from Thursday's level. SVIX ticking up a little bit, obviously, up about half a point to about a 17. SVIX, of course, the inverse vol product out there. A UVIX at about a 19, down 1.4, and VolQ 2540 when we kicked off the show, down a little over a point, about 1.1 points from where it was on Thursday's level. No one got his name right away until Uncle Mike got it finally with a little bit of aid out there. So we'll start with Uncle Mike. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, A, any enduring memories of the heel/face known as Jake the Snake? And then B, what else is catching your eye out there? And an Uncle Mike type of day in the markets.
For sure. Yeah, I do not remember Jake the Snake being on the Rock and Wrestling cartoons. I'm going to have to look that up. Are you?
Well, if that threw you both off, that could potentially be wrong. That could be me. But I'm pretty sure he was on there.
I'm pretty sure he was not.
Okay, maybe he was. Then maybe that's me. I'll have to check it out.
All right. I mean, I can look into that. So, I mean, that's why I just like, if it wasn't the Junkyard Dog and I thought maybe Scott Hall made some type of weird appearance on there. I don't know. But anyway.
No, until he brought up the bringing a pet thing, I was about to go Hillbilly Jim because he was on the show, but Jake the Snake was not. I think Mark kind of did us a big disservice.
All right, I will research this while you guys look at the markets. I will get to the bottom of this.
We could be wrong, but we'll see. But anyway, yeah. So in terms of Jake the Snake, yeah, he was quite the guy back in the day. Probably my favorite memory of Jake the Snake was when there's a lot of them because he was up there. He was the dude. And but what I remember the most is that Jimmy Hart started a campaign. He ran it like a political campaign to ban the DDT. So he would go to the ring and his megaphone saying, "Ban the DDT, ban the DDT." And then the thing was, it's just because the honky tonk man's scared of it. And so Jimmy Hart would say, "It's not because the honky tonk man's scared of it. It's a dangerous move. Ban the DDT, ban the DDT." And so Jimmy Hart's career in politics trying to ban the DDT, I think was short-lived. Apparently it didn't work, but nonetheless, that was probably one of my favorite memories was Jimmy Hart.
As you guys mentioned, I remember Jake the Snake, I thought being part of like the heel contingent, but it says here, the leader of the faces, of course, Hogan. It was Hogan, Junkyard Dog, Captain Lou, Andre, Wendy Richter, Jimmy Snuka, Hillbilly Jim, and Tito Santana on the faces. And then the heels was Roddy Piper, of course. And then, of course, Iron Sheik, of course, Nikolai Volkov, then the fabulous Moolah, Big John Studd, and Mr. Fuji. So they say Jake the Snake wasn't on it. So if I misled you, I apologize. Half a point demerit for me, even though I don't get points.
Well, there you go. So, yeah, I forgot about that. The Wendy Richter Fabulous Moolah feud when they wrestled at WrestleMania 1. That was a classic as well. Cyndi Lauper getting in on it. Because I believe Cyndi Lauper actually trained Wendy Richter. So not a lot of people know that. But anyway, so yeah, definitely a lot of good memories of Jake the Snake Roberts. And I remember he had his snake pit shortly after Piper's pit. And yeah, a lot of great things to say about Jake the Snake. But unfortunately, his life didn't turn out too great after wrestling like a lot of people. But nonetheless, he was definitely part of the 80s in a major way.
At least he's still alive. He's got that over the vast majority of 80s wrestlers. They're all dead.
True. He is still alive. That's a good thing. So anyway, going on to this market today, looks like 4,000 has been broken, but the 4,000 downside magnet is still holding this market up for right now in the S&P 500. This is a key number. And I'm actually surprised by earlier today how with pending home sales, that didn't throw more of a monkey wrench into the marketplace, being higher than expected, but lower than year over year. It just seems that a lot of announcements like that, if they have just the least amount of anything to do with inflation, are big market movers. So that was one that surprised me in pre-market today, but nonetheless, moving on as we shall. I think that this is just a Fed-driven market. I'm stating the obvious. I understand that. But what's interesting about this, and what I would definitely mention to our listeners, is that if you are bullish on this and you are of the school of thought that you're willing to take on the volatility short term within this market because you are bullish on this market long term, understand that you might get more opportunities, but the problem is that oftentimes if you're trying to buy a dip over a longer term, and by longer term meaning 3 to 5 years, if you are in that category, a lot of times you do have to buy when it doesn't feel like it's a good time to buy. Meaning there's more fear in the market, there's more of this, there's more of that. And if that's the case, then you really got to have a strong stomach to ride out some of the near-term volatility if that's where you're at this stage. The other way with which you could do it, if you are looking to buy over the course of the next couple of years, you could maybe, and this is if you have stocks you like, if you want to buy the SPY, whatever the case may be, you could buy the underlying with maybe 100 shares and then maybe with another 100 shares, sell some puts at lower levels to kind of scale into the market that way, if that's a concern of yours. There's always ways with which to do it. But the point I'm trying to make with all of this is that if you wait too long, your opportunity will be gone. If you get in too early, then, well, you're early and you're going to have to eat some downside pain. But if you want to make sure that you're not too late, you'll have to endure some of the short-term volatility. Now, how can you mitigate that? You can use options. That's a new concept we're bringing to this show, is that you can actually use options combined with stocks in some way, shape, or form. In terms of other markets, we are getting a little bit of a bid in the 10-year note, getting some buyers there. We are actually not having a ton of movement in silver today. And then going over to some of the commodities with where we are at. On the future side of it, we still have oil in the 75 range or in the 70s. So we're definitely not at the highs there. And then with natural gas.
But nat gas is blowing higher today.
Within nat gas, you beat me to the punch on that one. With nat gas up 5% on the day, 13 cents. We're coming off of some of those lows, and it'll be interesting to see how nat gas plays out in the coming weeks. So that's what I'm seeing right now. And just see what the Fed has to say. I'm tired of saying that, but that just seems to be what we're saying all too often these days.
It is the most Fed-driven market I've certainly ever seen out there. We're just all living on the Fed day after day. Speaking of living on the point totals, I ran the numbers while you were talking, Uncle Mike, and you are in the lead right now by 1.5 points. You have 3.5 points over the Greasy Meatballs, 2 points right now in our Guess the 80s wrestling trivia game. But again, the year is young. We shall see how all this unfolds. Mr. Meatball, same question for you. Any enduring memories of the heel/face known as Jake the Snake? And then B, what's lighting up your tape in this market, sir?
Man, he tells the best stories of post-wrestling career.
He does have amazing stories. I would totally go to a Jake the Snake one-man show.
If you haven't watched him get interviewed by Joe Rogan, there's just...
Did you hear his impersonation of the Macho Man? It was scary how good it was.
Oh, the story of him driving Andre the Giant to on an hour over an hour and a half and a case of beer is unbelievable, but yet completely believable. Just an absolute, the guy just tells gems of stories. So he's an interesting cat, and my understanding, he's turned his life around a little bit. He's not in such poor health anymore. So my hope is that all goes well in the land of Jake the Snake. We're all fans.
And what's catching your eye out there in the world of the markets today, sir?
Yeah, we did try it. We briefly were above 4,000 this morning. We've tested the 50-day moving average twice, gotten a little bounce here midday. If you turned the action from Friday kind of on its head, this looks almost mirror image. So I would not be surprised if we see more action today. The volatility index is getting smoked. It's down 0.75 points. Now, this is a Monday, so that is a pretty strong move for VIX coming off a Monday, and points towards some potential vol really coming out of the market. Place as a whole, vol Q, kind of the same boat. And, as Mike said, oil bonds, oil flattish bonds and nat gas getting a bid. The dollar is, if you want a bullish case, dollar is down 0.5%. That's a pretty strong move in the Forex world. So that is a pretty decent bullish indicator for the market as a whole.
Let's check out that market as a whole, see what's lighting it up out there, listeners. And right now, we've got some decent paper on the tape. Kind of depends where you look. VIX actually kind of lagging a little bit. We've seen VIX this time of day well north of, 400, even closing in on 500,000 contracts someday. But those are the days when we're whipsawing around. On days when we're kind of moving in one direction, VIX doesn't really tend to catch fire as much. And that's pretty much the case today. It's respectable. It's north of 250,000 contracts, but it's not blowing the doors off either. It's about 278,000 contracts right now. That ADV still hanging out pretty close to 700,000 right now, 685. So it's up nearly 200,000 contracts from where it was right before going into the Fed announcement out there. So a lot to unpack out there on the vol numbers. Rolling on into SPY. Again, SPY also likes a good whipsaw day, but it doesn't mind a rally day either, as evidenced by the numbers we're seeing out there right now. Nearly 6 million contracts on the tape already for SPY, about 5.7 million right now. That's closing in on the ADV of 9.1 million already. So that's a pretty respectable number for SPY. The S, 1.5 million contracts on the tape. The ADV, 2.7 million. Let's play our old friend. Let's play the old game. We haven't played it in a while, listeners. How many of the top 20 most active today are not expiring today? And the answer is 0, listeners. Everything in the top 20 is going out today. That's kind of more along the lines of what we've been expecting lately. Let's go to a top 40 and see what we find. I see 1, 2, 3. I see 4 listeners. So not a heck of a lot. That's kind of the ratio we've come to expect. 3 to 5 of the top 40 most active contracts in SPX are not expiring today. In fact, if I fire up our old buddy Henry's trade alert, I check out his custom-built non-zero DTE SPX scan just for us. The most active non-zero DTE contract in SPX right now are the 3885 puts going up 7,282 times, and they're expiring tomorrow. So you're talking not a heck of a lot of contracts versus the most active contract outside of that, nearly 31,000 of the 4,000 calls going out today. That probably doesn't surprise anyone given the fact that we're flirting with the 4,000 level right now, but clearly a substantial difference between the 0 day and the non-zero day in terms of volume and just general activity out there. The IWM, the small caps, 466,000 contracts on the tape right now. The ADV, 825, so looking respectable out there. And the Qs at pretty much exactly half of their ADV, which is where they tend to hang out right around now. It's interesting. The Qs exactly 1.5 million right now. The ADV pretty much exactly 3 million. So intriguing stuff out there for the Qs. Let's get on out to the single name, see what we've got lighting it up out there. And it's kind of a quiet one on the single day front. This is one of those days where apparently everyone's focused on the macro, perhaps not as much on the micro. Only cost you 167,000 contracts to break into the top 10 right now, listeners. That gets you to good old softy, $250.5, up another $1.35 or about 0.5% today. Obviously well north of their 52-week low they set not too long ago of 213 and about 0.5. Again, good for 167,000 contracts out there. Number 9 is now ever since they dove into this AI war, a perennial top 10er again. This is Alphabet. Again, it's a quiet week, so it doesn't mean much that they're number 9 today, but still. We shall see. It's Alphabet, 173,000, hanging out just a little bit shy of $90 right now, up about 70 cents, 89.80 or so right now, bouncing off their 52-week low of 83.34. So they hit that fairly recently. Maybe this AI boom will be enough to drive them off their lows. Number 8, I should say. This is a newcomer to the top 10. Haven't seen this one in here in quite some time. This is Fisker, ticker symbol FSR. Man, they are on the rampage today, doing 180,000 contracts, which for good old FSR is actually a decent clip. Let's go see what the ADV is out here in FSR. Their ADV is 38,000 contracts, so they're doing a substantial portion more than that today. Closing in nearly 5x, about 4.9x right now, their ADV. And they're on fire today. Listen, up 27% or about $1.50, trading right around 7.25 right now. looks like they have confirmed deliveries of their Ocean EV going to start in spring, and they're on track to maybe build more. So that's always a good sign for an EV maker, and clearly bouncing them out of the doldrums, which looks like their low came $5.50. Let's see, that was just last week, $5.58. They're now trading right around $7.25. So they've had an interesting year. They actually topped out over the past year at about 14.75. That was back in April of last year. Since then, it's been mostly getting beaten up last year. And looks like, at least for now, that bleeding has stopped for at least the last couple of days. Intriguing stuff. Still obviously down quite a bit, about 41% on the year, almost exactly 5 handles. That's just from where they started. To go from the high, it's obviously much more. So an interesting day for good old FSR. You folks slinging FSR? Let's look really quickly and let's just see what are the most active contracts out there in FSR today. We've got 18,500 of the 7 calls expiring this week. So as you would expect, a lot of very near dated paper going up here in FSR, including, looks like the biggest individual trade. Looks like it's just a conversion reversal. I got excited for a second. I thought someone was loading up on a bunch of puts, but it's just a 10 conversion reversal going up 3,000 times in March. So not that exciting there, but intriguing stuff nonetheless. A lot of paper going up out here. 7 calls leading the dance out here this week. FSR, interesting. Number 7. Now we're getting back to the usual suspects. It is Meta, 190,000 contracts, off $0.50 today, trading right around 170 right now. You know the deal with Meta. I won't belabor it out there for you. Instead, we'll keep rolling to number 6. You know, Alphabet not enough for you? What about good old Goog? Instead of Google, how about Goog popping in to our top 10? Haven't seen them in there in a while, probably since their earnings day. That's about it usually for them. 260,000 contracts for Goog coming in at number 6, hanging out $90 exactly, up about $0.75 out there right now. Then we got number 5. Yes, I said number 5 is the Amazonian, so slipping a little bit today. 331,000 contracts. Amazon up about 30 cents, trading right around 93.80. Not that far away from their 52-week low of 81 and about a half, but also pretty far away from their 52-week high of 170, almost 171 out there. And then number 4, the chip zone. This name was on fire last week. We had a lot of focus out there on chips. First off, they had banger earnings. And then on top of that, we had all the infrastructure and how they plan to spend all this money on the chip biz. So that was a pretty bullish week for NVIDIA. And they're continuing that afterglow this week. Listeners, up nearly $5 today, or 2.1%, trading 237.75 right now. Good for 459,000 contracts. So NVIDIA just on the rampage out there yet again today. Number 3, yep, I said number 3 is the fruit company. Up $1.75 today, trading 148 and about a half. So kind of hanging out right in there, the middle of that range of its 52-week low of 124.17 and a 52-week high of 179.61. By the way, I have the answers to our poll last week. We asked you about that last week. Which one are they going to hit first? 52-week high, 52-week low. We'll get to that in a little bit there on the mail block. But again, Apple good for 3 today. Only 496,000 contracts. So a light day for Apple. Again, kind of the day that single names forgot, at least so far. Number 2, haven't seen this one this far up on the list in the while. Usually it's hanging out somewhere in the 7 to 10 range if it's on our list. Today, it's at number 2. It's AMC. They're popping $0.50, nearly 8%, trading $6.70. Some people talking about the mother of all short squeezes out here at AMC. Wouldn't that be fitting for all things out there? But for whatever reason, AMC popping today. Nice run for the 52-week low of 3.75 that they hit. Looks like around the beginning of the year. They kicked off the year right around that level. So it looks like it was around that time frame. Intriguing stuff for AMC. Good for nearly 800,000 contracts. And you know what number 1 is today, listeners? It is Tesla. Usually good news in one EV tends to lift others. And we're seeing some of that out there today. And Tesla up 10.25 right now, or 5.25%, trading 207. So well over 100 handles north of its 52-week low. It's set not too long ago of 101.81, listeners. So quite the resurgence Tesla has put up, pretty much doubling here. Just a crazy town. Good for about 1.3 million contracts right now today. But otherwise, a pretty light day for single names out here. Let's see what we got on the docket this week. Can we expect some paper to come flying fast and furious this week as a result of earnings season? Well, let's find out, listeners. Today, we got Zoom popping off after the bell. They were emblematic of the COVID era. We'll see what's going on out there in the online video conferencing market. Tomorrow, we got Target and Rivian and AMC after the bell. So a lot going on out there today, or I should say tomorrow. Also got Marathon Oil tomorrow after the bell. Wednesday, we've got good old Neo. I haven't seen them. They used to be a perennial top 10er. These days, not so much. Wendy's, Lowe's, Dollar Tree, Kohl's, Salesforce, and Snowflake. Remember them? They were hot for a while. They kind of got hot again recently. Let's see if they can keep that fire going. Thursday, Best Buy. People have been sounding the death knell of this one forever. Macy's, Kroger, Big Lots, Portillo's. Ah, yes. The Italian beef, hot dog, and ribs volatility. We'll find out what they've got. I did hit Portillo's in the last week, and it was pretty darn tasty, if I do say so myself. Costco, Marvell, Dell, Six Flags on Thursday. Let's look at some of the hot off the presses earnings move results, earnings season, and earnings trades reports out here. Let's see. We got some names popping off before the bell this morning. See if anything's lighting up the tape out here. We had Lending Tree before the bell today. They went into their announcement 37.25. They're pricing in 8.2%. They delivered 7.8%. So like not a heck of a lot of anything really extra out there on that name. Let's see what we've got here. We had Li Auto Group, Li Auto Inc., also known as Li Zhang. This is a Chinese EV manufacturer. Ticker symbol LI. They're this morning before the bell as well. They went into their announcement 23.25. They're pricing in nearly 10%, 9.1%. They delivered nothing, 0.3%. They were hanging out at 23.30, and they're pretty much still at 23.06. So, wow, that is the underperformance of the day, at least so far. They delivered a whole hell of a lot of nothing. So hopefully, listeners, you blasted away on a ton of premium in Lee, and you've now already closed it, and you're having a good day. Let's see if Zoom's going to have a good day after the bell. They were, as of the time we ran this report this morning, listeners trading right around $74. They were pricing in $8.50. In the past, they've moved $8.90, so a little bit less vol out there. I think a lot of people think they have a good handle on what's going on with Zoom now. I guess we'll find out after the bell. A lot of that probably evidenced by the fact that they're actually clipping the vol out there, which is kind of interesting. Let's go to Target. Target before the bell tomorrow. 167 is where they were trading. They were pricing in 12.75. In the past, they've moved 12.75. So exactly as much as they had in the past. That's unusual. I guess they're not expecting a heck of a lot of change out there in Target land. That's kind of interesting, given all the hurdles that are facing that sector, from logistics to inflation and everything else, consumer demand. Intriguing stuff. We were just talking about all things EVs. Rivian's 28th after the bell. 17.30 is where they were trading. They're pricing in 242. In the past, they've moved 141, listeners. So they've got a full buck worth of extra juice out there in Rivian. Rivian trading right now 18.40. So they've actually popped a bit since we ran this Numbers report earlier this morning. So, wow. Already moving quite a bit. Looks like maybe that extra juice is a bit merited out there. Let's go to Snowflake as well. They're the first, the first after the bell. 148 and about a half is where they were trading. They're pricing in $13.63. In the past, they moved $12.49. So extra juice in Snowflake. Best Buy, second before the bell. 83.80 is where they were trading. They're pricing in $5.80. In the past, they've moved $5.31. So a wee bit of extra juice out there in Best Buy. Is the death knell merited? Have they survived yet again? I guess we'll find out when we hear the numbers on the second. Let's go out here. Let's go to Portillo's. You can't end without talking some Italian beef, or as Uncle Mike likes it, the burger vol out there in Portillo's. Never had a burger yet in Portillo's in all my ventures there. Second before the bell, 22.30 is where they were trading. They're pricing in $1.78. In the past, they've moved $1 even. So a fair amount of extra juice here in Portillo's. Wow. Intriguing. Six Flags, second before the bell as well. 26.84 is where they were trading. They were pricing in $2.30. In the past, they've moved $1.77. I can keep doing this game all day, listeners. Instead, you guys can go check it out, along with the earnings season report. That's coming in a little bit this week as well. We were at 112, 115 last week in that range. We're down to about 110% right now. So still coming in, still above our long-term average, though, of 92%. So still looking pretty robust here on the season. In terms of earnings trades, no new ones being entered or exited today, but we are still monitoring 62 long straddles and 41 long calendars for your earnings trading edification. Where do you go to find all that data? Because we love you folks, completely for free. theoptionsinsider.com. Click on the Options News and Articles tab to begin your journey to the dark side as we keep on rolling right on into the Odd Block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by theoptionsinsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Odd Block, the portion of the show where we get weird, we get wild, we get a little whimsical. As I mentioned earlier, not exactly the heaviest of single name action days, but there are some pockets of activity to be found. In terms of raw size, this one is just up there. This is a pretty big one. This goes out to everyone's favorite Schlumberger NV, ticker symbol SLB. You know this one, world's largest offshore drilling company, trading pretty much exactly $54 right now, up about a dime today. On the year, obviously a different story. A year ago, 39.25. And then we all know post-invasion, these names rally, got up to about $49.50. Then it came in pretty hard, down to about, looks like it hit the low for the year in July of last year, $30.65. Then it rebounded from there. By November, it was trading $55 again. By the beginning of this year, January, got up to its high for the year, 59.5. Has since sold off a bit, down to about 54 right now. But still net up on the year, up about a third, about 37.5%. So pretty decent little year here, all things considered, for good old Schlumberger NV. And Mr. Meatball, looks like someone is maybe saying, you know what, I'll take some of this profit you got, and I'll put it in my pocket to the tune of the April 65s. Someone coming in this morning and blasting away at 33,315 of these calls, getting 33 cents for these. So 65, I said we're trading at about a 54 right now, listeners. This is 11 handle out of the money paper. It's got a little bit of time. It's April. He's getting 33 cents for these, so not nothing. It's a 34 vol. So I think this is a trade I think a lot of people would do probably all day. I'll certainly dump my stock 11 handles higher, and I'll get paid 33 cents to do it. You might be wondering, how's he getting so much vol? There are earnings. Let me look really quickly to see if they are within the lifespan of the... Oh, you know what? That's why. Earnings are the day of expiration, Mr. Meatball. So that complicates things a little bit here. That's why he's getting a hefty 33 cents for these. But intriguing nonetheless. Mr. Meatball, what are your thoughts on someone just overwriting the hell out of good old Schlumberger NV, sir?
Yeah, you're looking at somebody who's long the stock. They're going to get some pretty good premium out of it on a relative basis. I mean, these are $12 out of the money. Yeah, I'd like to get a little more juice out of it, but that's not a bad sale.
Not bad at all, given how far out of the money they are. It's not like they're writing at the monies, right? Yeah, they're getting a pretty... I'm sure they'd let some of their stock fly at 65 and have a big smile on their face. That's pretty much $5.50 above the 52-week high there, listeners. So not a bad level, all things considered. Not the most exciting of trades, but just from the sheer size of it, they had to kind of make it onto our list today on a day when you're kind of struggling to find other stuff that is kind of worthy of note out there. Let's go on out to a name we've talked about a few times of late, but it's been a couple of months. This is KKR, ticker symbol, of course, a KKR. And trading right now, $55.80, up about 80 cents today. So nice little pop for them. On the year, different story. Down the year, kind of a bit of a wasted year. A year ago was $60 even, so they're actually down about almost 5 handles on the year and a little over 7%. They kind of vacillated throughout most of the year. They sold off in March down to $50, back up in late March to 62 again, then down again in July to about $45. And they rallied again in August up to 57, then back down again. This thing had a very range-bound year, back down to $43 in September, then right back up again in November to 57 again. So if you were pretty deft on the old trigger finger, you could have done a lot of trading around these levels. And right back down again, listeners, in December to $45 again, before rallying again. February got up to $59.10 before selling off a little bit to where it is again right now, $55.78. So we are kind of at the upper portion of that range that this name has been hanging out at for quite some time. And intriguingly enough, Mr. Meatball, we had someone coming in this morning and looks like they took out 10,000 of the March expiring this week. These are on the 3rd, 55 puts. So they're playing with fire a little bit here, listeners, because if past is prologue, this name can turn around again and go all the way back down very easily to $43 in a heartbeat. So they're playing a little bit fast and loose. They sold these puts, looks like, on the bid for 35 cents. That's about a 29 vol, so decent, not a heck of a lot of juice. But again, they're going out this Friday, so they just need to survive through Friday. Let's see, when are the earnings? That may complicate things. The earnings are on May 2nd, so they're looking pretty good there. No big announcement this week. So Mr. Mr. Meatball, I apologize. It looks like they're just trying to come in and collect the proverbial nickel, in this case 35 cents, ahead of the steamroller before this name can drop again by the end of this week, sir. What say you?
Yeah, that is exactly what it appears to be. Just selling some puts to try and pick up some, it's 0.6%, 0.7% of the value of the stock. I mean, it's not a bad little return if you can get it, but pretty darn close to the money, given where we are. Seems to have, and literally this was 55.03 on Friday. So interesting timing.
Yeah, they're playing with a little bit of fire here. Gun to your head, Mr. Meatball. You got to choose these 35-cent puts or the 33-cent calls in SLB. Which way are you going?
I'm going to go with the SLB ones.
SLB all day and twice on Friday, I would think.
Not even close.
These ones could come back to bite you, and that 35 cents could end up being ashes in your mouth. Listen, but we shall see. We'll come back to it even at the end of this week, and maybe we'll know, well, we should know by then, obviously, exactly what's going on out there. Speaking of knowing what's going on, let's finish it up. Looking back a little bit, listen, we have a lot of trades we've been tracking for you folks out here on the old Odd Block trade tracker here. Let's see what we've got here. We're going back to the January 26th show. It's not too far, about a month, listeners, to RLX Technology, ticker symbol RLX. This is an ADR out of China. Who was? I think it was the Rock Lobster was complaining on the Options Oddity show on Friday. We have tons of ADRs out of China and Brazil, nothing out of Europe. He was lamenting the lack of European ADRs. So if you know some good European ADRs, shout him over there at the Rock Lobster at Option Ball on Twitter. He'll want to hear from you. But we've got RLX trading right around $2 today, $1.99 actually, off a couple of cents. So not a big day for them. But what we were looking at, listeners, was actually, before I even get there, let's just look really quickly at the year for RLX. This one's been an interesting year, but even though it's been within a fairly tight range, a year ago it was trading exactly $3. So looking a little bit brighter back then. And then they came for it right away. That was on February 28th, actually. And by March 1st or March 14th, actually, they were trading $1.22. So it got cut more than in half in the span of a few sessions. Again, we've seen a lot of interesting moves by the Chinese government that could cause a lot of headaches for these Chinese ADRs. Looks like that might have been the case here as well. Then it rebounded pretty quickly. By March 18th, it was trading $2.40 again. Then it kind of hung out in that mid to high 2 range for a lot of the year. Started selling off again in October time, September, October. Then it got down for its low for the year in October of 90 cents. Then they started rallying it again by December 9th. It got up to about $2.86, almost $3 again. Hung out there for a while. And then after February this year, it started selling off again back to where it is right now, $1.99. So it's net off about a third, about a little over $1 on the year. But it's also up about $1 from its low on the year. So kind of hanging out right in that 50-50 spot right now. Let's see what we had on the show back on January 26th. And Mr. Meatball, looks like we were looking at somebody betting that the good old days were coming again for RLX. Somebody came in and scooped 2,500 of the Feb 3s. I think you know where I'm going with these already, listeners. They paid 20 cents. They lifted the offer for these bad boys. That was a 103 vol. So this had all the whiff of some 2021 swing for the fences upside kind of paper. Even though, in their defense, the stock at the time when they bought these was $2.75. So $3 wasn't out of the realm of possibility. There were no earnings. The next announcement isn't until March 10th. So this was just a straight up swing for the old near-term fences, get a little bit of 3 call love in. And alas, Mr. Meatball, this one did not work out. The stock closed at $2.18 on expiration. So a long way from not just the $3, but the $2.75 where it was when they bought these calls. These calls were still open and a whole bunch more. So it looks like, at least on this print, we saw paper drop 50K. If you add up all the OI on that strike, going to be a lot more of an ouchie out there. But we're just looking at this individual print. Mr. Meatball, what say you? It looks like somebody getting a little bit too excited with RLX, and they paid for it, quite literally, sir.
Yeah, that was when you swing for the fences. Sometimes it works out and you hit it on a Waveland Avenue, but more often than not, you strike out. That's why Sammy Sosa used to lead the team in home runs and lead the team in strikeouts.
The good old Sammy Sosa days. Well, you know who never strikes out? It's Uncle Mike. So let's get to him. A little bit of the old strategy block.
It's time to dispense options, wit, wisdom, and education. It's time for the Strategy Block.
All right, everyone, welcome to the Strategy Block, the portion of the show where Uncle Mike holds court on some options topic. Sometimes sneaks in a little 80s wrestling. So, Uncle Mike, I have budgeted about 11 minutes for you to regale us with why the DDT is the greatest finisher of all time. Go.
Not enough time. We'd have to have several hours.
That's a full show in and of itself.
Yes. I don't even want to go there because I won't be able to stop once I start. But anyway, not quite as exciting as the DDT, but oftentimes I think it is. I want to talk today about just really an emphasis for all of our listeners out there on the importance of Row these days. Row is the redheaded stepchild of the option Greeks, but it's a big factor again in a lot of trading. And so what Row is that it has to do with interest rates. And what I want to just give you a description of right here is why it has that type of effect. So if you look at a stock, pick a stock, any stock, almost any stock, let's just assume no dividend on the stock just to keep things simple for right now. If you were to look at selling an at-the-money covered call versus selling an at-the-money put, you're going to get more money or more premium for selling an at-the-money covered call. 99% of the time, let's say. There's always exceptions. Why is that? Well, here's why. Whenever you sell, and first off, or the first other thing to mention is that risk reward, it's the same thing. Selling a covered call is the same thing as selling a cash secured put. Identical risk reward, assuming all things are equal. But in this case, all things are equal, but you need to understand why is the covered call more favorable. Well, let's think about this for a second. If you're to sell a covered call, you have to buy the stock. And by buying the stock, that's going to take up some money. You're going to have to pay and let's just assume no margin for right now, just to keep things simple as well. You're going to have to tie up all that capital to buy that stock. And then you can actually sell the call. Now, with a short put, you can have the same risk reward, and you don't have to tie up all that capital. You still have the same risk, but a lot of times you don't have to pay, or not a lot of times, but you don't have to have all that money there. But let's just say you do for a second. We're not even going to factor in margin. What a lot of brokers will do is they will have something they refer to as maintenance release. So what that means is, let's just say that we have a $20 stock and we're just doing a one lot on it. So with the $20 stock, you're selling the 20 call, you have to tie up $2,000. If you sell the 20 put, you have $2,000 of risk, and you have to have that $2,000 available. Now, what a lot of brokers will let you do, it's not simple. You're going to have to call them up and explain to them what this is you have something called maintenance release. If you have that short put in place, then what you can do is you can take some of that money, that $2,000, and use some of it to put into a U.S. government treasury, and that'll pay you an interest rate. Some brokers will allow you to do money market funds. Some brokers will allow you to do different things, but it's something with which you'll need to have an understanding of. What I have found, and just so you know, it was kind of a humbling process working with TD Ameritrade on this. A lot of people had no clue what I was talking about when I was looking into this a while ago when interest rates started coming back. Maintenance release. What the heck is that? This was a big deal back in my Options Express days 15 years ago. Back in the old days, you could have release of up to 95%. So 95% of that short put money could be going into some type of government treasury, even in an IRA account. And that was huge back in the old days. Now you can still do that, at least according to TD Ameritrade. But what I have found is that it's more beneficial most of the time to simply buy the stock and sell the covered call against it. You'll make more money on buying the stock and selling the covered call. Now, is this going to be the case every time? Nope. It is not. But my point is to all of this is things like this are something with which you need to be made aware of, because in a money market account right now, you can get between 3.5% to 4%. If you're just letting your money sit in cash at the broker, you're not getting that. I know Interactive Brokers does pay money. I believe it is, I'd have to look it up, but I think it's, they do actually pay a pretty fair rate to have money in cash, but it's after the first $10,000. I know TD Ameritrade does not. So something with which you need to look into within your individual trading is have this understanding, because if you do this right, then this can benefit you 3 to 4% annually of money that you may be leaving on the table. So, moral of the story today, have an understanding of synthetics and how they work and how they can hurt you or harm you, but also have an understanding of how you can gain some interest on your trades, because this is, in a lot of ways, I hate to say anything's guaranteed, but if you can invest in U.S. government treasuries in some way, shape, or form, you're going to get 3 to 4% added to your annual rates of return that you may or may not have had otherwise. And that is the strategy block for today.
Maybe not quite as sexy as a DDT, but still important nonetheless, as we keep on rolling and we go, listeners, around the block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, everyone, welcome to Around the Block, the portion of the show where we tell you what we're keeping an eye on here for the rest of the week until we get to our next episode on Thursday. And really quick, listeners, I promised you a payoff for our question of the week last week. And we asked you folks last week, Apple has had an interesting range over the past year, high of 179.61, a low of 124.17. Quite simply, which one will it hit next? And about two-thirds, or excuse me, about three-quarters of you, 77.3% to be precise, chose the 52-week low of 124.17. We're going to be retesting that again. Only about 22.7% of you said we're going to be hitting that high of 179.61. So not exactly a bullish period for our fans. Our audience tends to fade a lot of these rallies. Speaking of fading things, we were looking at some of our data. We like to track our questions of the week over for the last couple of years and see how they stand up to the test of time. A year ago, of course, this was the 1-year anniversary of the terrible events going on out there in Ukraine. So we asked you folks a year ago, as we watch these tragic events unfold in Ukraine, quite simply, how long do you think we will see the financial fallout from this and the impact on volatility? Is this an invasion blip, or are we going to see this kind of vol drag on the markets for years? We gave you 4 choices a year ago: a few days, a few weeks, a few months, or a few years. And looks like a lot of you were in the short-term camp. I wish you were right, but 42.2% of you said a few weeks. 31.1% said a few days. So you're closing in on 3/4 of our audience thought it would be done in a couple of weeks in terms of the market impact. We all know that's not the case. We knew back then that probably wasn't the right answer, which is why we reran that poll a week or two later. Got a very different result. I think people started realizing we were in for a little bit of a longer haul out there. Only 11.1% of you said a few years on this one, which turns out to unfortunately have been the right answer out there. In terms of questions for this week, our question of the week this week, listeners, is a straightforward one. Just the facts, ma'am. We've been talking a lot about all this zero DTE madness. We're asking you folks this week, is this zero DTE explosion, SPX, is it increasing intraday volatility? Yes or no? That's a very simple question. I'll reveal your results in a second. First, let's go around the horn. Let's go to the greasiest of meatballs. A, what is your vote? Do you think the zero DTE explosion is increasing intraday volatility? B, what do you think our audience is voting for? And C, what are you keeping an eye on for the rest of the week, sir?
I mean, it's certainly having a strong effect on volatility and how we move. The option flows have a tendency to really push things one way or the other pretty hard. And it'll be spots where we kind of run into it because they create so much delta. But on a day-to-day basis, I don't think they tend to actually matter as much. But on an intraday basis, yes, they're definitely a source of volatility.
And what are you watching for the rest of the week, sir?
Obviously, I'm watching this 4,000 level. I'm watching the 50-day moving average. Where we closed about 10 points below the 50-day. We're currently sitting about 14 points above. What's going to happen there? And how is and really some of these earnings and the Russell 2000, which sneakily just got smoked last week. Will it kind of recover, or is it just kind of having a gasp of air and interest rates take us lower? And you got to watch these bond auctions. Bond auctions have been a real canary in the coal mine in terms of what's going to happen with U.S. Treasuries. You can find some of that information on CME Group on how they go, or you'll hear Santelli talking about it, one of the people that I do like on CNBC, that will kind of tell you what happened. So there's definitely always some things going on, but bonds are the dog's owner, right? It doesn't matter whether it's the options or the stocks that are the dog and the tail. What matters is the owner, and that is always going to be bonds.
Who owns the dog? That is the creditors at the end of the day. Mr. Uncle Mike, same question for you. Do you think the SPX, zero-day SPX, I should say, explosion is increasing intraday vol? A, and B, what are you watching for the rest of the week?
I think no doubt it's increasing some intraday vol, just because of the more popular it gets, the more vol it is going to increase, I think. In terms of what I'm watching, it's funny that the Greasy Meatball mentioned bonds, because I just released an article on bonds today on hedging your bonds. Check it out. Follow me on Twitter at Mike TOSAW, TOSAW. So I am watching that as well. Great minds think alike. And the other things with which we're watching, anything inflation or Fed related, that's what it's about now. I mean, earnings are. I wish I was watching earnings, or wish I was watching what companies are doing or things like that. But I'm watching Powell, anything related to that. So that's what I'm watching, and we'll see where all that takes us.
Right now, it just went live right before showtime. Our audience agrees with you. 60% say yes, 40% say no. So that's kind of interesting. Again, just went live. That will be our question of the week. You can find it at Options is the place to go. That music means we got to get on out of here, listeners. But before we go, one last time around the horn. Mr. Meatball, if folks want to debate intraday volatility with you, or they want to see what all the vol learning you have cooking, where should they go? What should they do?
Yeah, go to optionpit.com. Check out my VIX Edge blog that I'm writing every day. Today we did talk a little bit about zero DTE and kind of what some overall macro trends are in the market. It's worth a read.
Optionpit.com, the place to go. And Mr. Uncle Mike, where can folks go to enjoy the benefits of all the content you've got going these days?
A couple places. First place, follow me on Twitter at Mike TOSAW, TOSAW. Also, check out my website, stcharleswealth.com.
There you go. stcharleswealth.com is the place to go. We got to get on out of here, but don't you worry. Our broadcast day is not complete. We'll be back in about an hour for all things crypto on the Crypto Rundown. I believe we'll be joined by Mr. Greg Magadini over there from the artist formerly known as GVol, now Amber Data. They have an interesting white paper just put out about all things crypto and volatility. So we'll get into all that fun and a whole bunch more in about exactly an hour. If you listen to live hangout, we'll be back in a little bit. We'll pump some fun stuff into the live chat for you to enjoy. Back again for the Crypto Rundown. For all you listening on demand, just hit next on your device of choice after you're finished with this show. Hopefully, Crypto Rundown will be waiting there for you. And then back again throughout the rest of the week with your usual assemblage of content, listeners, including an advisor's option coming at you with myself and the Oracle of New Hampshire, Mr. Matt from ORATS over there, as well as a pro Q&A tomorrow for all you pro folks with Steve Sosnick from IB. Then you got your options boot camp and your OPRs hitting you on Wednesday before we're back again on Thursday for episode 2 of the Option Block. Stay safe out there, everybody.
The Option Block is brought to you by SEBO. When it comes to trading volatility, trust SEBO, the creator of the VIX Index, for in-depth and relevant information. SEBO's tools and services gives you up-to-date trade insights, analysis, and positions of VIX options and futures. No matter what kind of trader you are, there's plenty of useful information to take the guesswork out of creating your portfolio strategy and to help you make more educated moves in the market. Visit www.cboe.com/VIX today to learn more. You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available on the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions@theoptionsinsider.com.